Alright guys, an absolutely brutal and very, very simple workout today for arms. So again, these are going to be, you guys have seen me do the incline curls for meat and potatoes, and you'll see I do a slight incline skull crusher tricep extension variation with the dumbbells. And I've said this before, it's one of those things where honestly the movement doesn't fit for me great. If I were to do it for long periods of time, it slowly starts to disassemble my elbows. But everything's within context, so it's a decent movement for me to do. It only doesn't quite fit great, and I know that I'm not going to be doing it for months and months on end. But again, it might be a great exercise for you guys. And really the gauge for any arm stuff when you're using free weights, dumbbells, barbells, whatever, is just that your upper arm is pointed straight up and down, perpendicular to the ground. And that will give you a good gauge. And again, it's not going to be your lower arm because people have different carry angle and all that good stuff. But it'll give you a good gauge if everything lines up basically the way that it should. And will likely put your elbows in the safest position. Again, when anything's done like a bodybuilder does, over and over and over for relatively high weight, relatively high reps, and a lot of volume over potentially the course of your career. But from a meat and potatoes standpoint, both of these exercises are great. From a profile, from a bracing, I mean, you have to brace your upper arm a little bit, but especially on the curl, you basically just kind of have your end range of shoulder extension just kind of put you in a position where it's pretty easy to brace. And for here, again, obviously just some stuff around the shoulder just has to keep your upper arm still. And the advantage of both of these is really the profile. So they both overload kind of the mid-lengths of the muscle. And again, the bicep is actually so weak in that lengthened position based just on how the muscle crosses over the joint that even though there's not a lot of torque at the joint, you're still putting that muscle at near capacity because, again, there's these internal moment arm things, which if you haven't been following along on Hypertrophy Coach University, we'll be getting into eventually, that make a big difference for what your biceps are capable of doing. So again, for both of these, as far as form and stuff goes, once you get the setup right, just make sure you have an incline here on the bench that allows you to keep your upper arm about perpendicular to the ground and doesn't pull you back further than you can go. So if I went on a more of an incline, more horizontal of an incline here, like if I put it back there and tried to curl there, it would pull my shoulder in a range where I can't go. So again, for both of these, that upper arm nice and still, keeping the lower arm is the main moving thing. On these, the goal will really to be keeping your elbows pulled together the best that you can. Hopefully that makes sense to you. If they point out at all, that upper arm is obviously not perpendicular to the ground. But the more you keep them pulling, we'll keep it closer to perpendicular to the ground and will line up better. And so from here, it's pretty straightforward. You guys will see basically the rounds that I give you and the options that I give you for volume. But one way or another, you're going into a top set, trying to keep the reps, I would say, at least 8+. I think it was around 10 on both of mine. It's written down somewhere. And then from there, just going into a long-ass drop set back and forth on each. So again, supersetting the whole time. And the reason I like that is it's keep the workout extremely dense. You really don't have a point for 5 or 6 minutes straight where you're not doing a rep, but the opposing muscle group basically gets a great break while you're going. So obviously when you go from a curl into the tricep extension, your bicep is not producing anywhere near maximal force then, aside from stabilizing the joint to a certain degree. So again, you get a little rest, you get a little recovery of however long I'm doing the triceps now and moving the bench and grabbing the next dumbbells before I have to go again. So again, it's a great way to actually have a little bit of rest so you can keep performance and the loads you can use a little bit heavier and a little bit higher. But at the same time, it's a very efficient use of time, obviously, because you can do the two back and forth. And again, it's again getting a little bit of break and all that kind of good stuff as well too. So you'll see that basically doing 3 drops here, back and forth, taking them as far as you can possibly go. And again, I like if I had to give you a gauge, I try to keep the drop set rep ranges at least around 5 reps, 4 to 5 reps at least. I wouldn't want to dip too much lower than that, so that can allow you to give you an idea of what kind of loads you should use for this to dictate that the drop sets are still ending up where you want them as far as a rep range is concerned. And again, you'll see everything, nice controlled tempo. I'm trying to keep that upper arm still, obviously keeping the focus on the trained muscle and just taking it all the way. So you'll see that I have written 1 to 3 rounds. I'm experimenting a little bit now with rock bottom volume, but it's up to you guys here. So again, I did today just 1 round of all this. That was my entire arm day. And again, I would make the argument that if I'm hitting PRs on those first sets where I'm still kind of establishing my baseline on some of these movements and then going right into accumulating a ton of effective volume, ton of density, then again, it's going to kind of check all the boxes. But arguably, like I said, experiment with your own. If your recovery is freaking great now, then obviously you might need a little bit more working volume, and that's the case for going through more rounds. And then I extend the set here. The only reason I add this on the end, basically, is because these are ranges that I didn't train. So why not accumulate a little bit more effective volume? So again, I'm going to be hitting near failure points on these as well too, and train some ranges that I didn't. So basically this one, by putting the upper arm in a degree of flexion, the bicep's going to be a little bit shorter. I'm adding in a little bit component of loaded supination. So again, I'm training that bicep in a contractile range I'm not getting with the curl. And then the same thing with the tricep extension. So when I switch to the tricep extension, I'm making sure that I have some load when I'm in full elbow extension, which again is going to be near fully shortened for all the heads of the tricep, maybe minus the long head. But even there, I kind of extend it past my upper body a little bit. So it's going to be, relatively speaking, as close to fully shortened tricep for all the heads as you need. And so again, I would argue if you look at what is the goal of training, obviously is to match loads that you're capable of, where you're strongest, accumulate a ton of effective high force producing repetitions and sets, which again, once you're in that fatigued state and you've accumulated all that and you're still getting slow reps, is definitely happening. And then from there, making sure that you train nearly every range. So I would argue this is about as quick and efficient and thorough and complete of an arm workout as you can have. And it's definitely something that I'll be repeating. And again, if you're seeing the way that I'm training now, basically sometimes 7 days a week, these are the kind of workouts that allow me to kind of keep going as well too. Because again, this whole workout was well under a half an hour to get the entire thing done. And even if you do 2 or 3 rounds, it's going to keep you under 40 minutes for sure. And so again, I didn't film my warm-up sets because all I did for warm-up sets today was lighter weight. So again, I don't always do my activations in prep. But any activations for upper body, I would still warrant, doing a little bit for the shoulder joint, doing some for the elbows and the hands and the wrist would be a fine place to go. But again, there's some times where I'm just lazy, the same as everyone else, and I just basically do the bare minimum to get by.